Hi everyone, this is Tim Garrick. Welcome back. This is webinar 3 in our PeopleSoft on AWS Unleash the Power of the Cloud series. And during our first session, I took you through some of the the starting points of how the conversation around cloud begins. The second session was about making that decision and then what goes into that and then getting there. And this session is going to be about looking at the value that you're going to get out of the cloud. So I'm going to take you down one level deeper in terms of some of the design decisions that are going to come up as part of your journey and what those mean for PeopleSoft running in AWS. So thank you for joining me, and we'll also keep this one to a 10 to 15 minute run. All right, so next slide about us. I've repeated this information a couple times now, so guess what? I'm not going to do it again here. We've been doing this a while. We're passionate about it. When it comes to the cloud and it comes to running PeopleSoft and ERP applications in cloud, as an organization, we see this as a real transformational event for us and for our clients, especially our government clients, as this journey really starts to take hold. So thank you for joining me and for the interest in this topic. My name again is Tim Garrick, and I'm the EVP of Sierra-Cedar's Cloud Managed Services organization, which is really intimately involved with anything our clients are doing around public cloud, AWS, PeopleSoft, managed services, and where all these things start to intersect. So definitely something that I enjoy talking about. And if you have any questions after any of these webinar series, please don't hesitate to reach out. Love to talk. All right, so let's get into it. Let's talk about what PeopleSoft looks like on AWS and some of the things you need to be thinking about. So first things first, this is probably a pretty straightforward one, but one of the big challenges to running PeopleSoft applications or building PeopleSoft applications in traditional data center environments is how long it takes to do things. And what I can tell you is from very personal experience, this transition into public cloud really transforms the experience in both building and then ongoing managing applications in PeopleSoft applications in cloud. What used to take you hours or days, or in some cases weeks, I know many of you can relate to me on that, now it takes minutes, and it is quick. And I'm talking about full stack build outs. The only thing that really tends to take time within these build outs is anything around the database. So the size of the database can dictate how long it takes to build out environments, but getting all of the stack work done happens very, very quickly, and it's a big, big operational improvement in public cloud. Making this happen partially comes down to design, and there's two general ways you can design applications in public cloud, or I guess you could say also traditional data centers. One is in a shared approach, and a shared approach is typically this concept where you think about big iron, right? So you're going to have a big machine or a big virtual machine, and you're going to share that amongst many, many application pillars or application instances. So think about this like a dev test and a train environment all running in one big cloud environment. Like in a traditional data center, that environment creates limitations on your operational experience because these different environments impact each other, whether it's a performance impact or a patching impact, or something within the environment that creates an operational downtime event or something, you have an impact there. Modular approaches is really where, from a design perspective, you want to focus. This is where you start to leverage the power of cloud. You create smaller environments. So instead of creating a shared environment with an 8 CPU requirement, maybe you create 3 or 4 environments with a 1 CPU requirement. It's really amazing what you can do in AWS as you start to build these applications out. And what you'll find is, you'll get modular value out of being able to segment, being able to secure, being able to govern, all at an application pillar level. So you'll get value there. But you also get value in most cases with cost. It actually costs less to run modular than it does to run shared. And we've seen this time and time and time again. So, and then going back to that previous slide in terms of how long it takes to build things, if you leverage a modular approach, you can literally stand things up and shut them down upon request or as you need to. Very, very powerful stuff. Highly recommend modular building. Another thing that AWS delivers in terms of design is the ability to leverage AWS technology called auto scaling. Now, auto scaling does what it sounds like it can do, right? It can enable you to automatically scale up your applications in terms of when you need capacity or when you need performance. And with PeopleSoft, leverages this function quite well. But I always tell clients when they're looking at auto scaling as a design consideration, you really need to be thinking about it in 3 ways. One is the traditional way you think about auto scaling. So you have a load and you need to expand beyond that load, probably within a 10 to 15% range. You then have a situation called what I call scheduled scaling. For PeopleSoft, for big jumps in concurrency or needs, you typically need time to build cache and let PeopleSoft do what it's got to do to get everything synced up and spread load out evenly. That's what we call scheduled scaling. And the third type of event is called self-healing. That's when you have something within the environment fail. And in a self-healing event, what AWS will do is take that failed item out of the stack and insert a new healed item, which is called the auto healing. All of these scenarios, when you think about them as one in design, they all leverage the exact same infrastructure of auto scaling. So auto scaling allows you to go into all 3 of these scenarios: auto scaling, scheduled scaling, and self-healing with the same code line. It's incredibly powerful, and it works extremely well with PeopleSoft. Another item that I like to talk to clients about in terms of design is recovery. You no longer really have this concept you need to worry about called disaster recovery. In Amazon, if you design things correctly, up front, you build everything in a redundant fashion. Everything. Your web servers, your app servers, your self-healing, your auto scaling, where your services enter into the picture in terms of what they're talking to. You spread everything out over multiple availability zones. And multiple availability zones are primarily different data centers within the same geographical region. The same thing you think about today when you think about a near-term hot DR site. And it all works seamlessly together. The only area where you have a little bit of exposure is at the database. And for the database, we recommend that clients use the RDS service wherever possible. And that automates some of that movement of data behind the scenes and makes recovery very quick. We've seen clients lose a database in one availability zone, and their users never even know it because within 1 to 2 minutes, it's up and running in the other availability zone. Very powerful and really transforms the way you think about recovery. And the cloud is a big reason why that can happen. Another design consideration that clients go through early on in the process of build-outs is, do I keep things on all the time or off all the time? Or maybe I turn them off at night because they're dev environments. Here's what I tell you on this. I tell my clients on this topic. It depends. So depending upon how much you use your application during the week in terms of the number of hours, whether you leave it on all the time or you shut it down on the weekends or at nights might not make any difference. And what I mean by that is there are different savings plans and different ways that AWS has to yield savings that you really need to look at all those options and figure out what's going to work best for you. And that's something that someone with experience can certainly contribute to. And if you're going down this journey and path, I'd love to help explore this conversation with you. But you have lots of options to save money in the AWS ecosystem. Another real transformational item within AWS that I've seen PeopleSoft clients do is actually implement blue-green patching. And for those that aren't familiar with blue-green patching technologies or approaches, it's essentially a scenario where you patch the application and it never comes down. Okay, so for those of you dealing with maintenance windows, and I know we're in that business as well, maintenance windows are tough on organizations. And there's still some things within PeopleSoft you still have to take maintenance windows for. And, there just are. If cache needs to be rebuilt, if databases need to come down, there's still things that need downtime. But that list is getting narrower, and that is where Blue-Green comes in. And essentially, it's where you stand up a stack of new infrastructure. Your production's running over here. You patch this, and then you tell AWS, all right, go start talking to the new build out with the new patches. And then what happens over time is all the transactions go to that system. And when your current production system is no longer receiving transactions, you shut it down and move on. And it works great. Another thing to talk about and think about with design is compliance. AWS has an enormously diverse array of tools to enable security and compliance needs. I mean, it's growing by the day, month, week, you name it. So the investments that AWS is making in compliance tools is very impressive. You're actually able to also take that data and incorporate it into SIEM products if you have them, like Splunk, to get even additional layer of data that would be required based on your organizational needs. But one thing I always tell clients around compliance and security is one big transformational scenario within AWS is migrating away from collecting all the data and then analyzing it to dealing with events. Because AWS is very, very good at identifying events that would create different types of needs around security, security audit events and those types of things. So instead of dealing with all the data, you now have an opportunity to shift your policy to be more cloud-like and leverage event monitoring versus data monitoring. It's very interesting, and it's definitely something you're going to want to be thinking about. A couple more slides here, and then we're going to wrap it up. But this slide here really talks about guardrails. And guardrails are kind of the protections that you put around the system to make sure that your different groups of users are not expanding out beyond the rules that you set for them. And these could be cost rules. These could be security rules. These could be architecture rules, things that drive cost, things that drive risk. You're able to, with automation, put rules and guide rails around different items that are important to your organization and monitor them and control them. And if you have a developer that all of a sudden doubles your infrastructure, you can get an email on that saying, hey, your developer doubled your infrastructure, but don't worry about it. We shrunk it back down, but you might want to go talk to them. And then you can actually talk with that developer and figure out what they're doing. So you have the ability, through leveraging automation and orchestration and building technologies that fit to that, to controlling that. And that's a real powerful feature that you get by migrating into the cloud and leveraging a replatforming approach and starting to adopt cloud technologies. And last but not least, DevOps. DevOps comes into this concept of automation and infrastructure management. And essentially what you do here is you leverage concepts around infrastructure as code, and you start to change the way that you deal with infrastructure, okay? This move into public cloud really should be that transforming event for your agency to learn how to deploy cloud concepts, learn how to think differently, and you'll ultimately get to this DevOps model that will enable you to not only manage the things you've been managing for the last 20 years more effectively, but also now start to innovate. So always be learning and think about upfront how you want to move into eventually this DevOps mindset and cloud mindset for your organization. One of the quotes that I have up here is from our friends at K-State. They did an amazing job migrating into AWS, and they went through several transformations through that process, and congratulations to them. And yeah, so thank you to them. All right, last but not least, the last plug slide here. So this is the one you saw in the last two webinar sessions. This list is growing by the day. We're continuing to do more and more in public cloud, and all of the things that we've talked about today and we've talked about during the last two presentations are results of things that we've learned, and we're going to continue to share those. And I do thank you for joining me. So with that, I'll wrap it up. And as we release additional webinar series, please keep watch. And again, thank you for joining us. Bye-bye.